Hi, this is a video for More to Life leaders. It's for the first study of the Being Sure series, which is titled Accepted by God. Now, the theme of the Being Sure series is having confidence in our relationship with God, because that is one of the key signs of a genuine Christian. Now, a lot of Christians, new Christians and people who've been Christians for a long time, are often reluctant to express confidence about their standing with God, confidence about their future with God. There could be a few reasons for that. One perhaps is that it sounds arrogant. Another is perhaps that it sounds like that the person is self-confident about their standing with God, that they are a good person. But confidence or assurance in your relationship with God is actually a normal part of Christian life. The New Testament expects and promises Christians to be confident about their standing with God. It's a key sign of genuine faith, and it's a key ingredient to having joy as a Christian rather than being weighed down by feelings of guilt. And the secret or the paradox to having confidence in your relationship with God is that we've given up any pretense or false hope about self-confidence in our standing with God, that we merit or earn or are deserving of God's favour and acceptance, and instead we rest securely in what Jesus has done for us and what God has promised us. And therein lies the confidence that we can have in our relationship with God. So that's a theme that runs right through the Being Sure series. And the first study focuses in the very heart that a Christian can be completely confident that they are accepted by God. And so the key teaching point of this first study, which looks at Romans chapter 3, focusing in on verses 21 to 26, the key teaching point is that we are justified or accepted by God by faith in Jesus, not by our works. We are justified by faith in Jesus and not by our works. Now, that is the key teaching point that we want people to understand, and it is such at the heart of what being a Christian is, and it is such at the heart of having joy as a Christian and confidence and security in your relationship with God. So we really want people to grasp this and feel the joy of it. So the study itself. So the first section, verses 9 to 20, really hammers in the message: we cannot be justified by our works. We cannot hope to be accepted by God on the basis of the goodness of our own lives. And so there's verses 9 to 20 catalogues the shortcomings, the failings, the moral failure of humans, of each one of us. Now, this theme recalls studies 2 and 3 from Big Questions, so it may well be worthwhile recalling the themes from those studies. And somewhat surprisingly, it is vitally important for a person's confidence in their relationship with God that they completely give up any hope of being right in themselves before God, that they completely give up any hope of being able to be good enough for God's acceptance. Because it's only when you've given up hanging on to your own goodness that you will be ready to receive the solution that God offers in Jesus. It's only by giving up any hope of your own goodness that you'll reach out for the goodness that Jesus provides for us. So, somewhat paradoxically, it is vitally important. A person won't have confidence in their relationship with God if they're retaining any hope that they can be good in themselves. So then the second section, verses 21 to 26, God's provided a new way of acceptance with Him, and it's through faith in Jesus. These verses 21 to 26, are very dense. They're an incredibly dense part of the New Testament. But although the passage is dense, the study is really just trying to bring out two key points from these verses. And the first is the theme of justification. So to be justified means to be declared not guilty, means to be accepted by God. And the key points about being justified are, firstly, that being justified is a gift. It's not something we can earn. We've seen that from verses 9 to 20. Not something we can merit, not something we can deserve. It's a gift. It's a gift that God is prepared to give. The second thing that we learn about justification is that it is by God's grace. It's because of God's character that he is moved to offer acceptance, to offer forgiveness, and he is moved to do that because of his character of being generous to people who are undeserving, of being kind to people who don't deserve it, of being generous to people who have in fact deserved the opposite from him. And thirdly, justification is purchased. The gift of justification is purchased for us by Jesus' sacrifice of atonement. He's paid the price for our forgiveness, for our justification, for our acceptance by God. He's paid the price for us by dying for us on the cross. So that's the first part from verses 21 to 26, justification. The second part is that this justification is received by faith in Jesus as our Saviour and Lord. We gladly rest in his sacrifice for us to deal with our sin, and we follow Jesus to become like him in character, in values, and in the purpose of our lives. So a couple of illustrations that you might use. I think it is very helpful to illustrate these points, and so a couple of illustrations that you might use. The first illustration I've got is imagine that you're a kid and you're part of a footy team, and you front up on Saturday morning and the team you're playing against are Giants, and at half time you're getting thrashed, you're 50-0 down, and then for some reason Jonathan Thurston shows up and says, "G'day fellas, you mind if I pull on the boots and come on the field with you, have a game?" And now for some reason the ref lets him on, but at a full time, so Jonathan Thurston comes on and plays for your team, and at full time you've won the game 100 points to 50. There's one example of, I'll come back to it, but of justification by faith. Here's another, cooking. Imagine you decide to hold a dinner party for a dozen guests, but you actually have no clue how to cook. And fortunately, that afternoon, you get a knock on the door and Jamie Oliver shows up and says, "I've heard you're putting on a bit of a party. I thought I'd come and do the cooking for you." And so the guests arrive and you're bringing out delicious meal after delicious course after delicious course, and your guests ask you, "How are you doing this? We didn't think you could cook to save yourself." And of course your answer is, "Well, it's not me. I've got Jamie Oliver in the kitchen. I'm just getting out of the way, and he's telling me and he's giving me these delicious meals to bring out to you." Similarly, on the football field, if somebody asks you after the game, "Well, how did you turn that around? You were down 50-0 at half time and you won 100 to 50. Well, your answer would have to be, "Well, it wasn't anything we did. Jonathan Thurston came on the park and played for us, and look, all we did was get out of the way and give the ball to him." Both of those, you may well be able to think of better examples, but I just use those as examples of situations where you would be in a situation where you yourself are helpless, unqualified, unable to deal with it, out of your depth, but a person comes who can do for you what you can't, and all we do is get out of the way, trust them to do it for us, and give them the credit when results go well. So this, I think, these perhaps are illustrations you can use to explain what it is to have faith in Jesus, what it is to be justified by him, by trusting him to do for us what we can't do for ourselves. To live as a Christian, to extend those illustrations a little bit further, to live as a Christian is then to put Jesus at the centre of your life and follow him, much in the same way as if at the end of the game Jonathan Thurston said to you, "Look fellas, I think I'll come on board for the season, I want to teach you guys how to play footy and play it properly. And what would your response be? You say, that'd be fantastic. Likewise, if at the end of the night Jamie Oliver says, look, I'm going to come back next week, I'm going to teach you how to cook, and we're going to do this until you can cook properly. Again, you'd say, look, that'd be fantastic, I'm going to learn from the best in the business. Well, Jesus comes and says to us, I can put your trust in me, I can secure for you the acceptance by God that you need, and now come and follow me. I'm going to show you how life is to be lived. Now, a lot of what Jesus says about how life is to be lived goes against the grain of our sinful natures, and so we often find it hard to accept. But as you and I probably know from personal experience, when you put your trust in Jesus and trust his ways rather than your own, you learn that his ways really are the good ones. The third section of the study comes to the application questions from verses 9 and following, but I'd suggest question 10 is an especially important one. Why should God accept you? And make sure you give people an opportunity to perhaps write an answer and express what their answer is. Because really any answer that starts with because I shows a misunderstanding of how acceptance with God can be assured. Really the key, not that it's a test, but the answer that will win you acceptance with God is an answer that begins with because you. Why should God accept you? The person's answer should be, there's nothing I've done that means that God should accept me, but it's what God has done. God, it's what you've done for me. It's what you've promised, and it's what Jesus has done for me in paying my price for sin, in living the life I can't live, in dying the death for me that I deserve to die, and in promising all those who trust him that acceptance with God, forgiveness by God, is theirs. So even the response, because I have faith in Jesus, risks the object of assurance being my faith rather than being Jesus himself. So the thing that saves a person is not their faith. The thing that saves a person is Jesus. The response of faith is to look to Jesus. So the response of faith is not to look internally to one's own faith, but to look to the person who's actually achieved for us what we can't achieve for ourselves. In the two illustrations I give, it would make no sense to say, well, we won because we had faith in Jonathan Thurston. The obvious answer is we won the game because Jonathan Thurston was on the field, or this fantastic meal hasn't come from me, it's come from Jamie Oliver. Again, the assurance and acceptance we have from God doesn't come from us, doesn't come from our faith, it comes from Jesus, it comes from what he's done for us and the promise of God that those who trust him have his acceptance. So to wrap up, so that's the key topics of that passage, and the way the passage works. Just a couple of brief notes to end with. Keep building rapport in your groups and keep seeking responses from people. Keep seeking to find out, have they become Christians? Do they have confidence about their standing with God? Are they beginning to grow in their relationship with him?